the love that time couldn't kill. Some stories don't begin with fireworks or dramatic gestures. They begin in the quiet corners of everyday life, when two souls simply collide and everything changes. This is a story about love, about doubt, about the years stolen by mistrust. And most of all, it's a story about what happens when you stop believing in the very person you swore to trust forever. Liza and David met in college. She was the kind of girl who made life feel brighter just by walking into a room. Open, free-spirited, alive. David was her opposite, steady, quiet, careful with his words. But when he was with her, he laughed louder, dreamed bigger, lived freer. Together, they were unstoppable, like two pieces of a puzzle that finally found their match. Their nights were long conversations under campus lights, their days filled with plans about houses they would buy, trips they would take, children they would raise. It felt like nothing could touch them. But love, as beautiful as it is, has a fragile enemy: doubt. 2 years after they met, Liza shared the kind of news that should have sealed their bond forever. She was pregnant. David's heart leapt with joy, yet somewhere deep inside, an old shadow stirred. One evening, he saw her stepping out of a car with another man, an older colleague. The man touched her shoulder gently, as if in support, and they exchanged a smile. It was innocent, but for David it was poison. The seed of suspicion rooted itself in his mind. What if the baby isn't mine? He never asked directly. Instead, he pulled away, subtly at first, then colder and colder. Liza, carrying their child, couldn't understand why the man who once swore eternal devotion now looked at her with doubt instead of love. Finally, one stormy night, the silence broke. "Tell me the truth," David snapped. "Is this my child or his?" Her face went pale. Her hands trembled. "David, how could you even think that? You are the only one. This child is ours. I love you and only you." But his eyes were already clouded. The damage was done. And in that moment, with tears streaming down her face, she realized the cruelest betrayal wasn't another man. It was his lack of faith in her love. The next morning, she left. Years passed. David built a career, lived a quiet life, but every now and then he would wake at night with the echo of her words. "How could you even think that?" He tried to bury it, but regret is a ghost that never leaves. Liza raised her son, Josh, on her own. She gave him all the love she once dreamed of giving to David, too. Josh grew into a young man, carrying her smile, but also David's eyes. 2 decades later, fate staged its cruel play. Their college reunion. The room was alive with laughter, nostalgia, music from the past. David entered cautiously, unsure if he wanted to see her again. But then, across the room, he saw her. Liza, older now, silver touching her hair, but her eyes, the same. Still alive, still luminous. And beside her stood a tall young man, with broad shoulders, dark blonde hair, and a smile that struck David like lightning. He looked into the boy's face and froze. It was like staring at a mirror of his own youth. "David," Liza said softly, as if his name carried both pain and relief. "This is my son, Josh." Josh extended his hand with a firm grip. "Nice to meet you. Mom's told me about you." David's chest tightened. His lips tried to form words, but the truth was already written in the boy's eyes, in his mannerisms, in the curve of his smile. This was his son, his blood, his flesh, the living proof of the love he once doubted. Later, outside under the warm glow of street lamps, David finally found the courage to speak. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice was calm, but her eyes carried the weight of years. "I tried, David, but you had already decided not to believe me. I couldn't spend my life proving something that was always true. So I raised him alone. He was my joy, my strength. For me, he was a gift. For you, he was doubt." The words shattered him more than anger ever could. Tears filled his eyes. "I lost everything because I didn't trust you." She nodded sadly. "Yes, love can survive hardship, distance, even mistakes. But without trust, it dies, slowly, painfully." They stood in silence, listening to the echoes of the reunion fading behind them. She touched his hand, gently, just for a moment. "Maybe we will," she said softly. They parted that night. Two people bound by love, torn apart by mistrust, reunited only to realize how much they had lost. But as David walked away, he carried with him a truth he would never forget. Love doesn't die from distance. It doesn't die from time. It dies the moment you stop trusting the person who loves you most. And Josh, watching them from afar, didn't know the full story, but he knew one thing. Whatever his mother once had with David, it was powerful enough to still shine, even decades later. Because some love stories never truly end. They just leave behind lessons and echoes that time can't kill.